Thank you for the opportunity of sharing with you our experience, which is a research and development experience. And I ask to have the first slide, please. Okay, so I will be quickly go through this slide, so don't get, let's say, angry for me going very quickly, because my purpose is not to go in detail, but to give you the sense of a vision, I would say. So the vision starts from this. This is the San Raffaele Hospital in Milan, which is an entire smart city with all features that you find in a city, in a unique compound, where usually more than 25,000 people come every day in getting all type of services, from hotel to private metro to retail area, sports facility, and so on and so forth. And this is one of the main sites of a much bigger group, which is called the San Donato Group, which is several, let's say, almost 20 hospitals spread all over the Lombardy region. In the next slide, you will see that our focus has always been in designing systems and services is to have an holistic approach to health, so designing for physical, mental, and social well-being. And in the next slide, you will see our mission. The mission of the research center I'm director of, which is Advanced Technology in Health and Well-being, is to support individual and community to sustain healthier, greener, and fairer behaviors in socio-technological ecosystems. So this is our mission. In the next slide, we have, you see how we do this. We have 3 research programs: Hospital of the Future, I will make it faster, Life of the Future, and City of the Future, where the focus on health, as was defined, is key. Next slide, please. Actually, there was a label speaking that saying that we are a living lab for open innovation in this smart city context, and this is what we do. We do research projects. I would say more than 80% of these are European projects in all these 3 domains. And I just pick up some. In the next slide, I pick up one project, which is not a European project, is a project that we did with the Ministry of Industry and together with Vodafone in some years ago, when we were piloting the installation and the services running on 5G. 5G is a critical infrastructure. We cannot do without it if we want to deliver ubiquitous services that also imply to be personalized services that we will see later on. In the next slide, we pick up a couple of pictures to give the sense of this. This is one of the first, I believe is the first teleoperation done from 12 kilometers away, with the surgeon being 12 kilometers away, making a surgical operation, not on a real person, it was not the case, but on a phantom, and with zero latency, it went very good. In the next slide, we have another sense of how this will impact communities. This is the 5G connected ambulance. So you have basically the hospital being teletransported into an ambulance with virtual reality and augmented reality for the people in there, so to prepare for the arrival of the patient in the hospital. And this is the critical way in which you can do, even in terms of telemedicine, in much less critical way if you have a doctor office. But the challenge is to do this in mobility when time is constrained. So these are 2 examples. In the next slide, we have another example of how the infrastructure is going to change the capacity for us to deliver services to all the population. Okay, and this is a European project indeed, so I pick up one. It's a project on drones, on how drones will impact and how air mobility, for example, in logistics of medication, in logistics of medical device, and not only of pizza and books, okay, will change the chance for us to give services in remote, also having physical object moving on. In the next slide, I give you a quick sense of what does it mean, the healthier life from an ecosystem point of view. Okay, so next, please. You will see that this personalization implies that you have a unique point of reference of the individual together with many services. We all experience today that we have logouts and services don't speak each other. This is very typical in the public administration, but it's even worse in the private business. So it's very important to centralize and to give control to the individual of their own data and ask for aligned services. The more services we deliver, the more we need to have people in control of this and not services in control of this. So centralizing with the people and not centralizing with the services. In the next slide, you see what this implies. It implies a huge amount of data that can be used for personalization of services, for context-sensitive, let's say, information to be delivered seamlessly with no friction. This is a key point I would like to say. No friction between not one services, but an ecosystem of services and environments. In the next, and obviously the key challenge here is personalized medicine, but the point here is personalize every experience in life. In the next slide, we go a little bit on the topic of smarter and healthier city, which is our basically main topics in the last 5 to 10 years, because all these other projects has been running 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and since 10 years we are running a research project on smarter and healthier city. In the next slide, you see a smart district that is growing 3 kilometers away from us, from our hospital, and we are designing services for this smart district. And if you go in the next slide, you can find familiar pages on the previous book that has been published by the AAA, because we was explaining this on your previous issue. And in the next slide, I was focused for a moment on this, because this is the methodology. I'm not going into any detail, and I will provide you more information later on. This is the methodology that we use to elicit requirement by communities on what they want and what they need. I think it's important to create this balance, and at least this is what we do, between research and development and eliciting requirement from a community of what they need. So it's not only the point to put the person at the center, but helping the person to think not only to what they may need today, but to think to what they may need they cannot even imagine. If we are all familiar with the quote of Ford that was saying that if I ask my customer what they want, they will ask me for faster horses. So it's very important that we balance research and development, so the minimum viable products that are exposed in a living lab to a population, and to ask them, in light of this creative thinking, understanding what technology can do for you, what else would you request to be a service in your community? So, and then from this moment on, reverse engineer on the infrastructure that are enabling those kind of services. Being 5G, as I was saying, my point, one of the key infrastructure together with energy. So in the next slide. And
if we could make that the last slide, thank you.
Yes. So this is exactly the last slide where we can create a pattern. We are cutting here a few slides to see from the complexity of the service to the citizen interest, and this is how we can prioritize this. And we are applying this even to broader context, to entire district in the sea. Okay, because we believe it's very important to have the same approach also in vacation, because we believe people will be happy in vacation, in particular to the seaside, and so we would like people not to be only in the neighborhood, but to create neighborhood also elsewhere. And obviously, we are focusing on the Mediterranean area and the good well-being that you can receive in being by the Mediterranean seaside, maybe in winter time, and socializing differently from what you can do in other parts of the world. And this is my ending slide.
It's not really, you can go on, because when we go into a room together, Alberto is a magician. He's also an artist. The reason he's in Venice is he's actually demonstrating a new idea, which is a cognitive world, where basically he's demonstrating how people can go into a virtual reality, older people in particular, can go into a virtual reality environment to improve their cognitive health within a palatial environment. Actually, he's doing it in the palaces of Venice at the moment, and we could go on about that forever. In fact, all of our experts we could go on. So I look forward to butting heads with you again in the real world soon, Alberto. Thank you very much.